everyone, and thank you again for joining us here at Leaders Uncut. It is today my great pleasure to have with us Rich Stein, who is the CEO of Digitize Your Brand. Hello, Rich. How are you doing today?
Hello from Southern California. How are you?
There we go. I hope the weather is nice down there.
It is. It was raining earlier, but now, no one wants to hear our complaints in Southern California, so I won't.
That's right. I can't wait for the warm weather myself. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about yourself, first of all, your background, and then what you are doing with your company, Digitize Your Brand.
Yeah. So, Rich Stein here. Good to be here with you. Appreciate the opportunity to chat. Yeah. So, I mean, I basically have been involved in technology for years, beginning of my career, and worked for different outfits in the telecom space, in the web development space, in the systems integration space. So in the early in my career, I learned a lot about technology and the value of data and business process management and how data and technology kind of plays itself into the world. But then completely got out of that space and went into the merch space. Was working for basically corporate merchandising, so making branded merchandise, and they call it swag, that is handed out at trade shows, events, in consumer products, those types of things, and did that for a while, and then thought, kind of had an epiphany of what's next in the merch space and what can I do about it. Was kind of the impetus.
Okay.
And so I kind of was leaning back on my technology ideas and thought, what if merchandise was interactive? What would that look like? And how would that play a role in how merchandise is used, leveraged, optimized? And then, so essentially, found out about technology called NFC technology that could be implanted inside of different types of merchandise. And because of the adoption and integration of this NFC technology in Android and Apple phones, basically created the opportunity to create this merchandise that can interact with phones. And so
Okay.
I can kind of go into more detail to that, but that's kind of the background from the technology space to the merchandise space, and now the fusion of technology in merchandise, which has been my main focus for about the last 8 to 10 years of essentially trying to pioneer this in the world, because it's even today still under the radar and not a lot of people know about it, that I can behave in this manner. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my my elements of kind of leading up to where I'm at
Your
today.
focus, and I love it because I have seen examples like this where people can use QR codes or scan a QR code on different objects and then be taken to a complete immersive journey that educates about the products, gives critical data about the products, or just, of course, brands exposes the brand in a way that's very different from what we see. So it creates really big differentiation factors that I think are very extremely valuable and important right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned a QR code, which is good because people are getting used to using that, or that's an element. I wouldn't say that's a competitive tool, if you will, to NFC, but it's a lot different. So sometimes we get the question, well, can't we just do a QR code on something versus this NFC chip? Because the NFC chip or the technology behind it, it's a physical piece, so it's a little bit more expensive than just printing a QR code.
Uh-huh.
But there are definitely some differences and variances between the two, which are important to note. And so usually, like if it's a print piece, like a poster or a postcard, or a sign, you can put a QR code on there. That's fine. But what we really try to do is kind of play in the affinity space around merchandise. So when you talk about apparel and accessories, putting kind of an uglier QR code on it can kind of take away from the brand. Most brands have these brand guidelines that they send you a big book of, like, how
Yeah.
their brand's supposed to be positioned, and then you add a mark on there that's not the most aesthetically pleasing. They get a little bit like concerned about, well, that's going to take away from who we are as a brand. So that, in addition to some of the data that you can connect to a QR code, isn't as advanced and intellectual, if you will, than what this NFC technology can do. So we try to work a lot in the enterprise space, and whether it's enterprise on the corporate side or enterprise on experiential around sports and entertainment. So the data they want is a little bit more advanced, and we're talking up to AI and blockchain.
Yeah.
So you definitely need to have more security around
Yeah.
this technology versus a QR code, which can be hacked. But to your point, yeah, I mean, the ability to capture these experiences. QR code is one element, but NFC, I kind of say it takes it to another level of opportunity, and that can kind of play itself out in a few ways.
Yeah.
We try to educate clients on the differences and where the impact with this chip, this NFC tap, can play a role, at another level, if you will,
And thank you. That was important for you to distinguish both. That's, like I said, we are more used to QR code, but the NFC is taking this to a new level, which is something most people are not aware of. So thank you for explaining that and pointing out the differences. So tell us about the process. Somebody is interested in using your technology. Where do they start?
Yeah, be honest, it's an education in the beginning. Like I was just on a call with NASCAR, and you think NASCAR, $1 billion business, and they're not using this yet. And it was really kind of educating their one of their directors on what this is and the capabilities of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I find myself like kind of being a evangelical on the technology with different large entities, from Major League Baseball to NASCAR to brands, Dr. Pepper, the Cokes, the Citibanks, the Chase Banks, all these, the car companies. I mean, all these entities don't really know this exists yet. I mean, and it's kind of mind-boggling. You think, there's these organizations are so resourceful. It's like, well, what do they not know about, right?
Yeah.
But you have to go, and I think at first educate them that this exists, what it is, how it functions. To your point, why it's different than a QR code. Sometimes people, we just do a QR code, and then it's like, well, this does this much more. And everyone talks about, we want to be more innovative. We want zero-party data from consumers or attendees. We want, more authenticity built within our experiences. And the reality is that's what this can do. But again, it's a matter of educating them and then showing them that they wouldn't be the first to do it. So part of what we try to do is, one, educate what NFC is, why it's a powerful infrastructure, because it's literally the same technology that powers Apple Pay, Google Pay, mobile ticketing for all these venues, and access control for hotels, digital car key now. So as we explain it to them, I think they kind of connect the dots, like, oh, and now we make this same technology implanted in any sort of printed merchandise or materials.
Yep.
And it's the same thing you're doing every day when you're tapping to pay for your latte at Starbucks.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So showing them that, and then actually showing them use cases, right? Of like, here's how this was done in different environments of events, trade shows, retail, packaging, nonprofit, cause marketing,
yes,
type environments. So really then showing them, and that's why I think, hopefully we've done a good job up to this point to kind of help validate the market, because we've actually done, some really interesting and cool, applications of it with different ecosystems or different brands or different events.
So tell us, what industries are you most working with? Because I mean, you have such great ways, very sustainable ways here to deliver a lot of information, collateral, links, digital media, experiences, data. What are the industries that you're mostly working with right now?
So right now it's a lot of sports and kind of fan engagement. I'm a fan of sports and music, and you think just fundamentally, that's how we all escape from the world. We wear a lot of our merch that we're connected to. It kind of brings us happiness or joy on a day-to-day basis of watching our team at night or going to a game on the weekend. So there's I think a permission, if you will, in the fan world to connect at a deeper level. And if fans open to it, it's just, how do you make it more immersive and more valuable? And so we've done quite a bit kind of going to the sports ecosystem. And when I say that, sometimes it's going to the team trying to say, hey, you should be leveraging this as a value for all your fans and all your sponsors. Sometimes it resonates with teams, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll try to go to brands like, hey, you're Dr. Pepper or your Miller Coors, you're going to all these events trying to engage with fans, you're giving out a bunch of stuff. Why don't you make that interactive? And now you can create a deeper connection, actually get the fan data in a good way, hopefully, and then be more authentic with how you connect with them after the event. So, and even in the music space, we're doing a collab next week with the Anaheim Ducks, where they're making a collab with the brand Offspring. Offspring's a band that was very popular and based out of Orange County. Yep. So all these teams are starting to do these cool, fun collabs. They've been doing it for a couple of years, but now we could take to another level. That collab, they're making a jersey, and they're making this cool duck Offspring patch, and they're putting it on the jersey, and then when they tap it, it's going to go to an experience around the band Offspring and the Anaheim Ducks.
Wow. So what do you mean by explain that when they tap it? So do you do it with your phone? How does that work?
Yeah, so they're going to make a jersey,
Yeah.
almost like the jersey behind me, and the fan can tap the jersey with their phone.
Okay.
And when they tap the patch that has the Offspring logo with the ducks, it's like a hybrid logo of the ducks and the Offspring branding. So it kind of look this really cool mark that's going to be on the item, and then the fan will go tap it with their phone, and then it will pop up on their phone. I haven't seen the video yet, but it's supposed to be a really cool, video between Offspring and the Ducks and hockey. But if you think about it, like, they're doing this collab, and all these entities are now doing, Marvel with Major League Baseball, and these music with your favorite hockey team. So it's like that's a huge opportunity to create this digital experience because the fan wants to kind of connect deeper with that collaboration. And now they can actually track it because they make an item that's going to drive that call to action.
Yeah.
Go on your phone, and maybe it unlocks a discount or unlocks the opportunity to buy, additional merchandise.
Yeah.
It's now you literally kind of use the merch as a conduit to kind of create a deeper fan experience. But it's all very authentic because it's the fan only gets it if they tap it. So if they don't tap it, they're not interested. But if they tap it, they're engulfed in the opportunity to kind of connect at another level. And now you have permission to do some really cool stuff with them. But you're putting it through their merch, which they love anyway because they're a fan. So kind of going back to your original question, which was, what industries are kind of is this resonating with? So we're trying to kind of go to the fan side, but in that same thought, because you mentioned sustainability, we're trying to bring this to the B2B space as well. When you go to these B2B events, a lot of content, right, around software and AI and all these things that happen at the trade shows. So we just did a really cool activation where we built this collateral wall. So you go to these events and a lot of times they're trying to hand you a bunch of materials. There was this wall that was made, and the attendee at this conference can go to the wall and tap different. In this scenario was convention centers throughout the United States that they're interested in getting meeting planning information from. So instead of handing them a document or saying, hey, we'll email you a bunch of flyers, it's like go to the wall and tap the wall on the convention centers you're interested in. And it created this little interface page that then collected the 12 convention centers they were interested in, and now it was on their phone, and there's very sustainable, right? You didn't have to get materials. There wasn't a disconnect with what you were interested in versus another person because the brand could track, hey, we had, 340 people tap the wall, and each one of them tapped different items. So now we got their story of what they were interested in. So talk about sustainability, but also context around what was each person was interested in.
Is your marketing making an impact? Are you reaching the right audience? Is your messaging truly connecting? Are you maximizing your return on investment? At Slice Marketing, we use AI-powered insights to fine-tune your targeting, optimize your messaging, design high-converting websites, and craft content that inspires, entertains, and educates, or to amplify your brand's impact. Sometimes a small adjustment can create big results. Let's chat, no strings attached. Email us at catherine.oaks@slicemarketing.com or visit our website. And now let's get back to our video.
It was almost powered by this tap technology.
I love it. So I mean, you must be working a lot with the hospitality world as well, of course, as events. I mean, I know you've been working with Tony Robbins. You also have done work with MGM Resorts. I mean, I can see great opportunities there to, first of all, teach your audience about what's going on in your environment. I mean, for MGM Resorts, that's very valuable. And for Tony Robbins to also follow up with crowds and let them know about what's coming up. So can you tell us about those two experiences and two jobs or partnerships that you have been working on?
Yeah, well, I'll be candid, and maybe this is good, hopefully, because we want to be uncut, right? So we want to tell the good and bad of stuff or some of the frustrating things, and it's part of business and part of the role. But I was so excited when I worked with Tony Robbins because I'd gone to a lot of his seminars over the years, and obviously he's a very impactful figure. Yeah. We actually did his 60th anniversary party where he did a party at the Nokia Theater in LA. So we made him these LED wristbands, and we connected technology to it, and he wanted to raise money. He doesn't need anything. It was his 60th birthday. He wanted to raise money for Underground Railroad, which is a sex trafficking organization, to raise funds for that. He wanted to obviously be purposeful what he was doing. So we helped him raise over $1 million with the wristbands, because people then now at their seats, they could tap and connect with their wristband and do a direct donation. And so I thought, like, what an amazing opportunity to use the technology. And the reason I say, sometimes things are good and bad is I was like, okay, I'm on my way working with Tony Robbins, because there's so many different ways he could use this at his major events where he's got 20,000 people in the venue. So it was just funny, because then I was all excited to meet and talk to his team more about the technology, and I haven't gotten in since. Which to me is like a head scratcher, because I'm like, well, they used me already, and I want to show them how this technology can amplify all these experiences that all the attendees have. And I've been to a few of the events, so I think there's some gaps and some blind spots that they may not be aware of, or may not necessarily care about, but I want to share it with them. And so it's just been, again, nature of business, right? Do something really cool and fun. You're like, okay, I'm in. And not that I took it for granted, but I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to go in and kind of show them the other ways this can use and be leveraged. And so I've still been and I kind of gave up, to be honest with you. I gave up trying to go after that market with him, because I think he would get it at his level, but a lot of his people don't appreciate the same assertiveness that he tries to teach when you try to go to them with that, which is ironic in itself and funny. But on the MGM side, they used us during COVID quite a bit in terms of this contactless technology, right? And we did some fun programs with them around Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga around their residencies, and people got a wristband like this when they checked in, and they got a Lady Gaga one or a Bruno Mars one, and then they could tap and get connected to all the Bruno Mars promotions and programs for the weekend. Same thing with Lady Gaga. And more recently with MGM, we did a cool promotion. They did it with the Bellagio. They spent on a special invitation to high-end VIP clients, and we programmed into the tap the 800 number to call and reserve your weekend getaway. Okay. It's kind of fun, because they built it in kind of their mail program, but they made the call to action a little more sophisticated to tap the Bellagio piece to kind of connect you to the to that function. So this is all very versatile in terms of the function, but in terms of what the call to action can be.
Yeah, plus you had the chance to change whatever you've done, because you may launch a campaign, but then you can modify this campaign using the same system that you had set up originally, right?
Yeah, that's actually the beauty of it. Like I talk about cumulative experiences, right? And the ability to, think about there's a world, like the kind of cool world around the drop, right? A lot of apparel brands do the drop, like, oh, go to the mall and wait in line and you get the drop. Yeah. Like think about this as the digital drop, because literally you could change an item and you say, hey, maybe it's a concert or it's a launch of something. Yep. Hey, at 7 p.m. on Friday, tap your item, because we're giving away 10 of the pieces out there are going to win an automatic, VIP experience. So that's a digital drop, because you literally can change what the merchandise does and what the deliverable is from an experiential perspective.
Mm-hmm. Right? That's what I love about it. Plus, it's very aesthetic. It looks great. It's not like like you said, an ugly QR code, and you can apply it to so many products. So you have also done work with the government, with the U.S. Army, and I find that really interesting, because it opens lots of doors and possibilities there. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm sure you've been to events where you just go, maybe it's a consumer event, you see the Army there, and there are people doing push-ups and trying to get all these recruits, right? And and they give out a bunch of stuff, and there's no number one, they're talking to a market that's 17 to 22 years old. It's like we have to talk their language, and what is a language of everybody? It's their phone, it's digital. So they're giving out all this stuff, the lanyards and the t-shirts, and it's like there's no digital interaction there. And selfishly, what are they looking to do? They want recruits, they want leads, they want to talk to these, the kids, they want to talk to the parents. And so there's a big disconnect in terms of how they're gathering this data. So we went to them and said, why don't you make the lanyards you give out, the epoxy key tags and bag tags, and the cards you give out, you got to make that interactive, because now it may be one thing, you get the kid for 2 minutes when they walk by the booth at the Fit Expo or the car show, but now it's like they go home, they have this, it's like you're missing an opportunity for them to tap it with their phone and open up what the Army could be for them, right? And whatever that might be, financial, from pride of country to education. There's all sorts of obviously ways they're trying to position the Army to be impactful in people's lives, right? But not just them, but the parents. Mm-hmm. So we basically brought them the technology and kind of working through different battalions to show them how on the ground, literally on the ground, be it, these shows they go to, or even when they go to high schools and, building out these relationships in their community, how they should have this technology connected to it. So when you tap it, it can then be personalized because it's a very personal thing, I'm sure, talking about going into the Army. So you may have a rapport with a certain recruiter, and they want to make sure if I'm the recruiter Rich and I talk to somebody like, and I give the kid something like, we had a rapport, I want to make sure that he gets to my information when he goes home or she goes home and talk to her parents about the opportunity. Well, who did you talk to? Who is this? Let's get that person on the phone. Well, now they can tap the item and it got some information on it directly. So you're really accentuating that personalization of the content and the context of that interaction. So we're trying to bring it to in those worlds too. Like we actually just got a call 2 days ago from the Air Force. So a gentleman in the field in Colorado said, hey, I saw this at one of the events. Like, can we get on a call? I want to see how we can use this at the Air Force. So I think there's a gap there, right? In terms of like, and all these, I think people take for granted. They go to these events, they hand out this merchandise and it's all analog. It's like, been there, done that. And it's almost like, these companies aren't Walmart or CVS trying to give you a bunch of stuff that, you can use. It's like they're trying to make an impact. They're trying to, create a connection. And not that this is the, the be all, end all final solution, but everything needs to be, upgraded, right? And updated in terms of how you market and how you engage. So we're really trying to take this analog merchandise to this digital interactive merchandise and say, these are what these can do. By the way, it's still a hat, it's still a pen, a t-shirt, it's still going to be that at the most fundamental layer. You're still giving that out. Now it opens up 10 times more possibilities to connect.
And that's what I love. You can change your message, you can change your campaigns, because people keep those products. I mean, depending on the product, of course, but most of the time, if it's a cap, they keep the cap, right? And you can just tell them, hey, we have some news in the company, just, scanned it up. Tap it. You said tap as the right word, right?
Yes.
Tap it, not scan, tap it, and then you'll have access to what's going on. So I think that in itself is huge, because you don't have to reprint everything or change anything. It's very available for you to update and generate new campaigns, or like I said, communicate information that may be critical. So if people are interested, then you have products on your website, right? Is that where you go? You go to your website to select the products, or how does that work?
Yeah, we're a little more intimate. We have a website called Promo NFC. And basically it's more of a retail site to people, just if they find us online through a search. But usually we don't do much on there. If it's someone just ordering something, they usually get in touch with us and we kind of talk through more elements of the opportunity, because even they might see that and not really know the impact of what the tap can do. I think that's a key point, because sometimes people are like, we'll just program to go to our website. And you're like, okay, but that's not going to really move the meter. This can do so much more. Like, let's talk about how this can create an experience. And sometimes it's simple, like we just want to go to Instagram, totally cool. But we really try, again, when someone connects with us, is I try to help architect a more advanced way to use this. And not that it's complicated, it's just more meaningful and more intentional. And most of these brands, if they're using this at an event or a VIP campaign, it's like they want that, they just didn't know this exists and how to do it. But yeah, so usually they connect back to us. We do have a few resellers, like promotional agencies, who come to us and kind of wholesale it to their end clients. And so, but ultimately, we're a small entity. It's me and a business partner. So it's me kind of getting involved and kind of talking through the items and the opportunity, and then, what the connectivity can be in terms of the experiences.
Okay, so people have just to connect with you, speak about what they are trying to do, and then you come back with some suggestions as to what products they can leverage and utilize for their campaigns.
Right, and a lot of times too, like there's some standard items that we have on Promo NFC, about 15 of them, but sometimes, for example, when it comes to apparel, not all t-shirts are the same. It's what style, what color, what's the imprint. It becomes a lot of variability in terms of what type of hat. Is a trucker hat? Is a low profile hat? What are you? So that's where we kind of talk through, so they can kind of, and people have their preferences, right? Like, oh, this is cheap. We're just giving away 5,000 t-shirts on the back of a seat. We want to be versus, hey, this is higher end. We want it to be the soft cotton, which you get at Nordstrom's. We want to make an item that has that look and feel of, feeling like a really quality t-shirt. We want to put the chip and technology in that. So again, as we walk through, whether it's apparel or other types of accessories, we kind of walk through with the client on what they're outside of the general stuff you might find on the promo.
Okay, all right, that's important. Also, there's something else I find it very important that this allows is security and privacy, right? Those NFC chips, they really offer the state-of-the-art security protection. Can you address that and explain how it can be used and why it's essential nowadays to think in those
terms? Well, that's a good point. When we talk about the QR code too, is the QR code is pretty easy to be hacked.
Yeah.
As well as copied. Yeah. So what's interesting about this is because it's a physical piece, you have to tap it with your phone. You're just there inherently. There's security embedded in that, right? Mm-hmm. But also, this NFC chip, as we talk about NFC technology, that's what Apple Pay is and Google Pay. That's what mobile ticketing is. That's what getting into your hotel room is. So this infrastructure NFC technology is very secure, and it's the reason Apple adopted it. It's in Android phones. And that extends to the things we're doing with it, because there's a few elements. One, you can make a chip. It's basically called a DNA chip, which is a more secure chip, and that can create like authenticity. So, for example, this is being used in the supply chain of food, right? Of cannabis, of sustainability around how materials were made, child labor, right? Green materials, recycling. So literally in the chip, you can trace it back to the supply chain, and then now an individual can tap it and kind of see the sequence and the actual metrics connected to the supply chain that this was made in a non-child labor factory, right? Yep. So you have those elements of authentication and authenticity, and this can go up to blockchain. So you can actually program and integrate blockchain into this. So then let's say you're buying a signed jersey from an NBA star, you could tap it and understand and see that that's authentic.
I love that. That's
right. In addition to even on liquor and high-end liquor bottles. So the ability, this little NFC chip is very powerful, right? In terms of supply chain, but authenticity to an individual, knowing that this is what I said, I bought it, and I kind of confirm that information. And then the chip itself, like we host ours on Amazon Web Services, web servers, right? So you're going to have the proper infrastructure. And believe me, and we've gone through info security audits with like Deloitte, and we're doing some stuff right now with KPMG, the Army, American Cancer Society, Miller Coors around, obviously, privacy. So all sorts of things. And we actually just also did something with the Intuit Dome with the Clippers, and so we go through these info security elements. So they're like, okay, if we work with you, we want to make sure, this is locked and ready to have appropriate security, parameters in place.
That's so important nowadays. I mean, I can see so many applications that opens doors to a lot of options and ideas and applications that would be very beneficial and very important from a security standpoint, because it is an issue. It's becoming more and more of an issue.
Yeah, I think inherently, just as we talk anecdotally, intent is important, right? Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of data out there that's, especially back in the day where you're trying to evaluate, clicks on banner ads and impressions on a billboard you see. Like, what's interesting about this technology is this is very intentional. So the data is richer. It may not be as much because, you may have not everybody tapping something, but it's almost like I call it the difference between, busy and productive. Like busy is like, oh my God, we were so busy, all these things happened. But it's like, well, how productive was it? Well, I don't know. We don't have a lot of data. It just looked busy at the booth with all the t-shirts there. Yeah. Well, here you're going to know, hey, how many people tapped the shirt? How many people did you make impactful? And then that's more productive, right? So, and it's more intentional. So now we know the data we got is we have someone that's interested, and like, let's pay attention to those people that we create an experience that's connected versus this other thing that it may look busy, but who cares? We want to be more productive and authentic and intentional with what we're doing. And that's kind of what this is creating, is those elements of.
I think it's going to boost the return on investment, and especially with trade shows and events, I have seen so many people, so many companies waste money because they don't follow up properly, or they did not set up or implement the right tools to be able to follow up properly with the right data, because data is critical in that space. So that opens doors again to increased efficiency with both events. Increasing and growing return on investments, gaining data that will be very important for future campaigns. That's very valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think as consumers, as attendees of events, right? You go there and it's like, how did the event create an environment where, I spent $1,500 for my badge. I flew here. I spent 3 nights here. I spent all this money.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing for me as the individual attendee to maximize what I'm doing here? And I find so many times you go to these events and it's all over the place. There's either different technologies that are happening or there's analog. How many events do you go to where the way to connect with somebody else is some of them have a card, some of them have the QR code, some of them just say, hey, write down my email. There's such a disconnect, even just the networking part. We try to bring to the table to some of these events. Like, you need to streamline that process. Like, and number one, you have no idea of how many people connected with each other.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
So the data is very valuable, but again, there's all these disparate systems or these analog systems that aren't in place. And what we try to do when we talk to some of these event producers is this one little chip in this one wristband or this one lanyard can serve 4 different stakeholders at this event, including the attendee themselves. Well, that should be the most important. It's like, how are we serving the people who are attending, trying to connect with all this? And how are we connecting these disparate systems or making it easier to interact? And I still think we got a long way to go.
No, but you have
my part.
You have a lot of opportunities and options in front of you, which is wonderful. Wow, I mean, I can think of some. We could talk about this forever. It's fascinating.
Oh, you say that to all your guests.
No, I don't. Hey, you know what? You think I do, but what you have is very unique. I had never seen that before. Really?
Yeah.
It's a unique technology that opens doors to like I said, increased ROI, getting data that's critical, security. All of these are really important assets and tools and things we need to think about nowadays.
I agree, and it's still an uphill battle trying to still get in and show and but that's
well, this is why we're doing videos like that, so that we can get you some exposure and have people educated, because that's all about education.
Yeah, it for sure is. Yeah, all education. And it is funny when sometimes we show people, they're like, what? Like, we had this funny, we did this a conference a couple of years ago, and this gal she was from Australia, or maybe she was from England. I forget her accent exactly, but she was tapping and she's like, what is this wizardry? She's like, this is amazing. Like,
wizardry,
no way. Like, what happened? And she just tapped it and she showed her phone. She's like, it just did this. Like, this is, my mind is blown right now.
Yeah. Like I
so
said,
it's just fun to hear that.
It's a lot about education. So you have to let people know, first of all, that it does exist. How is it different from a QR code, and why it matters, and how it can really help you generate leads or create campaigns that will make you stand out from the crowds. And nowadays you have to find ways to stand out, because people are just submerged with content, with information, and they just don't pay attention to it as much. So you have to find ways to stand out and create something that's going to wake them up.
No, I love that thought, because we'll tell that too to some people that get trade shows, and it's like, even if it's just a silly pen, but now if the sales guy is at his booth and someone walks up, is like, check this pen out, and they tap it, they're like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, oh yeah, it's got all our content from here. Just take this and tap it and you'll get to all the white papers or the PDFs. And even just that little micro moment should create something in the attendee's brain of like, well, that's pretty innovative. That's kind of cool the way that we came up with that. And that reinforces, like, this brand is thinking outside the box. They're trying to do something different. Everybody else is doing the same thing. They did something different. So even in that little moment, like what you said, like, wake them up. Like, you got to wake them up.
That's what it is. You have to wake people up. Otherwise, they're just, people, a lot of us, I have the same issue. I have become a robot in certain cases. I see always the same thing. I'm like, okay, same old. And then you don't pay attention until something wakes you up. So you have something that can wake people up. And like I said, exposure, lots of ways to educate and just making people aware. And I know, hey, it's hard nowadays to stand out, to create advertising and marketing that's going to be nowadays, but you'll get there. I have no doubt that you will.
I appreciate that.
All right. So great. We've talked about all of this business. Now, I always ask my guests to share a story of resilience or challenges you had to overcome in your life, something you have learned that has turned into something positive that you can share with my audience. What would that be?
Wow. I can't say I've had a pretty lucky life. I've had a lot of things outside of work that's been like bad or negative. I think I maybe just kind of bring it back to work in terms of just being resilient. Like, I've been an entrepreneur for 25, 30 years and never had a salary in since I was in my late 20s. So it's been a while. But every day I got to wake up and I'm a small company. It's me and a business partner, but I'm kind of the face of it. So every day I got to find my own motivation and pick myself up when I'm feeling down and feeling like depressed and trying to, be my own motivation. And so it's tough because most of the time out there, you're either getting ghosted, right? You're getting like, I don't get it. That doesn't make sense. Or you think you did such a great job and then, you don't hear back from somebody. But I will say I have two daughters, and one the other day kind of wrote a speech about me in one of her classes. She's in journalism, and she was kind of just talking about her dad and me, and it's like kind of my resiliency in business. And she sees it. Like, I don't know if necessarily she sees it. I'm kind of involved in it, right? But it's, when we have kids, right, they watch us every day, and they hopefully take lessons. So yesterday she was she's in an acting school. So she's 17. So she's in an acting conservatory, kind of one of those schools, and she's not getting the parts that she wants to get, and she's gonna have some trouble with her with some of the directors not picking her for certain things, right? And so we kind of had a heart-to-heart talk, and then she's like, well, I have to do an audition today, and she was kind of working through some of the material, and some of it wasn't exactly what she wanted. But she kind of, towards the end of the conversation, said, oh, but, I see you, Dad, doing everything you're doing and kind of being resilient. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go there tomorrow. I'm just going to keep trying and kind of putting my best foot forward and being authentic with what she believes in about herself and her ability to earn the part. And so she left this morning and was pretty fired up to go and, do the audition and hopefully make an impact. So, I guess the point of it is, in life, right? Most of the time it doesn't go your way, right? Because not everyone is as invested in you as you are, and you have to be the one that has the resiliency, has the courage, right? Has the motivation, hopefully has the belief. And so with what I'm doing, I have such a belief in this technology, and it just makes so much sense to me that if I didn't, I would have quit a long time ago. Like I just know at some point, this is going to be impactful. And I try to bring authenticity to it as well. Like, again, if I was looking at like maybe some of the money I've made during the years, at times I'd be like, man, you should quit, go find some other job, go into mortgages, go into something where you're going to make, $300-400 a year for sure. And it's going to be easier than what I'm doing now. But I just have such a belief in faith in what this is, and hopefully my ability to be successful with it. And that's one for myself, but it's kind of been seen by my kids. And hopefully now, as they're becoming, young adults and into the world, they can take some of that to themselves, and whether they're acting or whatever they're doing is kind of take some of that sediment on what they see me doing every day. But
that's beautiful. You have to have resilience, but you have to have passion. And anytime you launch something new, it's going to be a challenge anyway. People reject anything they don't know. I mean, history has shown that, right? From the internet, from computers, from everything. They reject it at first because we don't want change, because change requires more work. But change is inevitable. Technology is keeping us alive. So I always ask people to have an open mind, and when something new comes up, at least investigate. Take the time. It doesn't take long, but take the time to investigate, because it can make a big difference in your life. And believe me, Abby, I know, because I am an entrepreneur. I have several companies too, and each time there's something new, there's just roadblocks. That's okay. It's a good sign. I see that as a positive sign, that if people reject it, it's a good sign. Just keep pushing, and one day they will embrace it, and one day you will be positioned as a front runner. This is when things happen. So never give up.
I appreciate that. It's almost like, at some point this will become a commodity, right?
Yes, it will.
There'll be 50 people that do it.
That's right.
It's the trying to get there first, but sometimes first comes with reluctancy.
But that's but also, like I said, when you're first and you don't give up, and you have spent the time to establish a certain brand and brand recognition, then you're well positioned to just explode, right, in a good way. So you just have to keep believing and keep doing, and you have something that's very valuable here.
Yeah, I definitely had to try to keep that faith.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for participating in the show today. I so appreciate you.
Yeah, you were awesome. Appreciate leading me in the right direction with the questions, and
Yeah.
also the enthusiasm, and you've given me a lot of positive energy here to continue the fight.
That's right, Rich. Hey, fight, fight, fight. We have to keep
Yes.
going because the great things don't happen easily, but they're worth fighting. I always tell people, I'm like you. I always get up in the morning thinking you need to keep going, because if you give up, nothing will ever happen. But if you don't give up, then the doors are open. So
Yeah.
never give up. All
Appreciate
right,
it.
Rich, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, thank you for watching. Please share this video and share what Rich is doing here. Everybody needs help. We're here to help each other out. And I'm going to publish this on my social media channels, of course, but I need you also to do the same so that we help each other, which needs to gain more exposure with what he's doing. And it will be very helpful for many industries to utilize that technology that is, first of all, a lot more secure, that can be linked to blockchain as well, which is also going to be very important going forward, but also that we're allowed to communicate messages in a more immersive way and change the message so easily without having to reprint or recreate or build new materials or new promotional items that you may not have to do because the technology is there for you to use and it's very flexible. So thanks again for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel and we will see you next time.